Welcome back, everybody, once again to another episode of TJ Talks the News. Today is October 18th, 2021. It's been a while since I've last seen you or heard from you. I didn't get to hear from you. I'm so lonely, you guys. I'm so lonely. Not really. I've actually been reaching out to a lot of old friends as of late. The hard part, however, is that my phone currently does not have a working microphone on it. So, reaching out has taken the form of emails and text messages mainly. And I had a friend reach out to me. I think I shared that story. The one who is not vaccinated. So I've actually had more human contact in the last month or so than I have in the previous 16 months before that or so. Anyways, Colin Powell, former Secretary of State who made case for Iraq invasion, dies of COVID complications at 84. I don't know why I thought of this. I think it's because of it mentions Iraq. I don't know. I took this class in college that was a course in Middle Eastern literature. Which I think I took it because I didn't have any interest in it. It was just I needed to fulfill the requirement. It was one of the few options that was available. But it actually ended up being a really fascinating class. And I think this was probably before I became fully aware. I don't even think I could say fully aware. Became somewhat aware of my privilege. I mean, it was weird growing up having two historians as parents, because I'm aware of all of these historical injustices that took place in this country. And my parents, hammered home certain values and stuff that I think are great, and it's not like my parents are evil, Republicans or anything. Uh, my dad has admitted to voting for Republicans in the past, so I don't know, but it was just I just never put two and two together. Uh, I don't think I ever really thought much about my position as a white male and all that comes with that, all that symbolizes, all of the history behind that in this country. Um, and so whenever I took this Middle Eastern class, I remember the professor and I kind of got into it early on because I pointed out to this woman professor that all of the authors that she had assigned in the course were women, and that there wasn't a single male author on the syllabus. And kind of, I just kind of asked her. I wasn't like, how dare you? Like, I wasn't accusing her of anything, or I was just kind of curious, but I think I was still maybe in the back of my mind, um, because of course she's big on gender equality, particularly she was Iranian, I believe, and coming from that Middle Eastern perspective. So then I had to kind of push her on this, like, well, why are all of the authors women then, kind of thing. uh, I don't think I was ever really an asshole. Again, I just don't think I had really thought deeply enough about um kind of who I was within the context of history and stuff. How did I get here? Colin Powell's died. Yeah, if you didn't hear that part, he's dead now. And I've noticed, I would say about 3 out of 5 headlines that I've seen today about this all seem to draw attention away from the death towards some of his more infamous decisions, such as him making the case to the UN for the war in Iraq. Uh, my brain is all, I keep kind of jumping back and forth. I'm going from like one tangent to the next, but to get back to the Middle East Middle Eastern thing, the reason this reminded me of it because she kind of made fun of, well, she didn't really make fun of. She was just kind of pointing out how utterly ignorant Americans are about the Middle East and like what countries even constitute the Middle East, how to even pronounce some of these countries' names, and yet we're in war with them. I think that's why I thought of it. And Colin Powell, of course, is one of the men responsible for getting us into that war. Of course, if it wasn't him, it would have been somebody else. And I do think that he spent his remaining years trying to redeem himself to some degree. He was certainly not a fan of Trump. It's interesting that he died of COVID complications. I imagine that he was indeed vaccinated. I don't know if this is going to say if he was vaccinated or not. Okay, I was going to say, man, it's taken me a long time to find this information. You would think it would be front and center. But he was indeed vaccinated. He had a type of cancer that made him, a blood cancer that made him prone to infections. So that makes sense. He was 84. He was old. But it's just interesting seeing a lot of people seem to be, really focusing on the damage that he did, which is, I guess, what surprises me about that is I usually don't see that, even if it's the most evil of people. The news headlines often don't draw attention to it. Of course, people in the comments will, and certain news sites will, depending on who's died and what the news site is and whatnot. But of course, you go to right wing media, and they're actually wishing death upon people. So that's a whole different world. But I guess it's just weird, and I wonder, maybe I'm imagining that. Maybe they do. I'm trying to think of other big Bush names that have passed away. Didn't Rumsfeld die? It would be interesting to look at the headlines for him. Maybe he's still alive. I don't know. These war criminals tend to live out their days, in their mansions and going on speaking tours to spread their war crime ways. The wealthiest 10% of Americans own a record 89% of all U.S. stocks. And there was another statistic going around recently showing that the top 1% now own more wealth than the entire middle class, which I thought we had crossed that line a long time ago. And we probably did, because we probably don't have a very great understanding of all the wealth that the top 1% actually has. But boy, it's, when COVID started, I thought for sure it was going to be a rather quick economic downturn. And early on, it seemed like that was being reflected in the stock market as well. But I believe the last year and a half has seen, again, just record growth in the stock market, record profits by many companies. And at the same time, people are struggling to get raises. And of course, if you didn't get, gosh, what's inflation? Inflation is at like 5% or something. So if you didn't get more than a 5% raise, then you're actually taking a pay cut this year. Which, boy, I thought I would see my wages start to really increase, because California has put a plan in motion to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour by next year, by 2022. And so I thought that I would see an equivalent boost in my income, and maybe it's just that teachers' income. We're definitely not known for getting the big bucks, but we also, I think, maybe tend to lag behind a little bit in seeing the effects of some of these things. And that's probably due to a certain amount of bureaucracy that's, there to protect the various stakeholders involved. So the processes for doing these things can be kind of lengthy. But yeah, no, I think we got like $150 last year for COVID, like COVID pay. It was what our union was able to negotiate. Um, so that's nice. And I mean, like a job at McDonald's is looking pretty dang tempting at this point. My brother actually got a job at McDonald's recently, and then he got fired from McDonald's recently too. That tends to be his pattern. Oh man, he got a girlfriend. Things were looking so good for him. Got a girlfriend, got a job. He seemed happy. And then I guess he like blew up at his manager, was like yelling at him about how the manager isn't doing things the right way. Um and my brother's very polite, very helpful. He's very knowledgeable, particularly when it comes to working with his hands and stuff. But he's also bipolar and can be very manic and a little controlling. So I remember we built this like little shelf thing to go over our fireplace so that we could put our TV on it. And working with him on it was quite challenging. You kind of just have to stay out of his way. And so that those kinds of jobs where you have to really be a team worker kind of stuff, and where you have to kind of, bow down to management, he's not going to do very well in. If we could like stick him in a room somewhere with like a bunch of just like tools and materials, I'm sure that, and paints, because he's an amazing artist too, and just a bunch of stuff and maybe some drugs. Because that's my brother. And I'm sure he could walk out of there with, something truly amazing. Um and something like a UBI would I think allow him to do that, right? That's one of the things that's so very attractive to me about a UBI is the potential for it to kind of unlock people's creativity. The ability to kind of pursue your interests would be so incredibly powerful. Um, it's like, oh, people are just going to do nothing. It's like, they're going to do the things that they want to do. So if they want to write a book, if they want to paint, if they want to sit and record YouTube videos all day, they can do that. And we would see, it would be a true renaissance. Maybe. Or people would just watch the next America's Got Talent or the next singing show or whatever people are watching these days. I don't know. Activists unfurled Tibet flag at Beijing Olympics flames ceremony. Did they then light the flag on fire at this flame ceremony? Wait, there's an Olympics going on? Didn't we just have an Olympics? I'm so confused. Police face. I don't pay attention to sports, so police face questions after a woman's body is found in a police van in Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah, that seems a little suspicious. You would think they would know why the body was there, right? Huh, okay, so they actually have video of the incident. They show her wandering around the parking lot, kind of looking at cars and stuff, and eventually she just gets into the van and closes the window, and that's it. I was gonna say, it doesn't seem like they have the toxicology report, so maybe an overdose, some other kind of suicide or something. I don't know why that's just a weird story. There's one of those ones though where the headline really makes it sound like potentially just terrible. Like there's some, cops are out killing women or something, but it's probably harmless. Well, not harmless, obviously not harmless. Somebody died, but nothing really suspicious going on there. A woman conceived through rape wins award for campaign to convict father. That sounds fascinating. Um, Honestly, I've always thought about this idea of kids being able to just sue their parents for their existence. Like they did not consent to that, right? That's one thing I always have to remind myself anytime I start to get frustrated with my kids is, hey, they did not ask to be brought into this world. I was the one who decided to do that. Um, and I mean, my wife and I are the ones who decided to do that. So this is actually in the UK though. Wow. And her mom was raped at the age of 13. Um, but yeah, I mean, you would think the trauma of it all, right? Gosh, our laws surrounding this stuff are just so messed up. It says, along with her campaign for children conceived through rape to be recognized as secondary victims, Daisy is asking the authorities to consider victimless prosecutions in cases where the victim may be too traumatized to testify, or may have died or disappeared, but where there is DNA evidence that could be used to convict the rapist. Why is that not already standard operating procedure? She's also calling for better treatment and support from the justice system for children conceived through rape. But yeah, you would think if they had the DNA evidence, I mean, I guess you could have something maybe where like a woman initially accuses, there's DNA evidence, but then retracts. And I guess you could say that the retraction is possibly um, because the initial accusation was false, and so going through with any kind of prosecution would not be right there. But this sounds more like people who just don't want to get involved at all. But now I'm thinking about it, like, I mean, unless there are other witnesses, wouldn't you need that testimony? Like, how else would you know it's rape? If the guy claims he raped her, then I guess then that would be the perpetrator admitting to it. But I mean, one of the reasons the laws are so messed up is because it's a difficult situation, and another reason the laws are so messed up is because just men are, you know, men were in charge of writing the laws, and men tend to be the ones doing the raping. So, um, Sinclair Broadcast Group identifies data breach. Interesting. Sinclair, of course, is buying out all of the local news stations around the country so that they can spread all of their conservative right-wing propaganda. For a while, it looked like our local newspaper was maybe going to be bought out by them, but they ended up getting bought out by some other right-wing group that's buying up mainly the newspapers. So they're just buying up all the news sources. Um, and then I mean, like again, why don't people believe what they see in the media? It's like, well, because maybe a lot of the media these days it's crap. It's utter crap. That's why talking about the media in this kind of singular entity is just so um problematic. You have to talk about kind of specific organizations. Let's see here. ESPN reporter Allison Williams leaving network over COVID vaccine mandate. Good. Good. There's a job opening right there for somebody. Um, the selfishness involved. Like, okay, you don't want to be told what to do, but we're talking about protecting other people's lives here. It's the same reason we have laws why we don't speed or why we don't drink and drive. It's about protecting other people. Does Allison Williams like to get drunk and then go drive 120 on the freeway? Probably. She probably does. That's exactly the type of people that we're dealing with. As I sweep with my broad brush, a man is on the run after allegedly killing two neighbors. Some in China hope he will never be caught. Okay, well we're not gonna read more about that. Just Chinese fugitive who may have been justified in his killing. Kenosha police accused of deputizing militia vigilantes during Jacob Blake protests, and this I mean, we have video of this kind of stuff happening across the country during these protests, the George Floyd protests and stuff, of police what appears to be openly colluding with some of um, these organizations and stuff, and acknowledging that they're treating them differently, that they want their help, all kinds of stuff. So again, why do we not trust our authority figures, our institutions? Maybe because they haven't given us much reason to. Tom Morey, inventor of the boogie board, dies at 86. Really? It's that new of an invention? Wow. It seems like something that would have been around for a while. I mean, surfing, I'm pretty sure, is early 20th century, maybe late 19th century, right? And the boogie board isn't that far removed from that. So, um, I used to go boogie boarding all the time. All the time. EU has exported 1 billion COVID vaccines. That's 1/7 of the world with half of a dose, right? Or is that it's just the same people getting vaccinated over and over and over again? Brooklyn woman arrested in connection with suspected arson at a Jewish school. Well, that's unfortunate. I used to like to burn things down. I was amazed with fire. Growing up, would, use alcohol, mainly cologne, because this was, I was probably around like 11, 12, and was getting into that age, and I was always interested in like girls and romance and that kind of stuff. So of course I had lots of cologne and discovered that cologne is flammable, so I would like spray it on everything and then light it on fire. And then my mom would come in like, what is that smell? Um and I would just go around lighting stuff on fire too. Like one time I lit this bag of, it's like a black plastic trash bag filled with dry weeds in it. And I was just melting the plastic on the outside, like, oh, I wonder what happens if we melt the plastic. And then walked away thinking that there was no fire because it just looked like the plastic had melted. That's it. I didn't see a flame. It didn't look like anything was on fire. Walked away and then smelled smoke, 5 minutes later, and come around to see my parents' fence on fire. And start to start to panic. My father was home at this point, so we ran and we got him. It was me and my best friend. We ran and we got him, and he grabbed the hose and he put it out with the hose. But I remember when they asked me how it happened, I admitted that I was playing with the barbecue lighter, but I didn't admit to lighting the trash bag on fire directly. Instead, I claimed that I had lit a spider on fire, and then the spider crawled into the bag. So it's not my fault. It was the spider's fault for not dying when he should have died. Gosh dang it. It's probably because I had just watched that movie Arachnophobia not too long before. And there's flaming spiders that like jump and fly and do all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm not a stranger to arson. Oh man, hopefully nobody was injured. Kansas reports fourth child COVID death as school-age children have highest case rate. And some people are fighting for fewer restrictions in schools. To me, it's one of the examples that really speaks to how far divided we are as a country. Where me as a parent, I'm at home having a heart attack every time I have to send my daughter to school because she's not vaccinated, and other people are across the country threatening, the school board for having mask mandates. Like the divide there, the gap, it's a big gap, and I don't know how you ever fill that gap in. We seem to have just two totally different. We're living in two totally different realities. I don't know how you ever bridge that. But hopefully they approve the vaccine soon, and thankfully, I don't know if I've spoken about this, but my brother-in-law has COVID. He was going to the ER. They sent him home, so that to me was a good sign. And last I heard, he was doing okay. So that's good. He had all of the pre-existing, he's overweight and has had has asthma, I think, and just we did not have that high hopes, but I'm sure we've gotten better at treating it to some degree. And he's also not that old. He's still fairly young. Chicago Police Department says officers who don't adhere to vaccination policy could be fired or die. Those are your options if you don't get vaccinated. You can get fired or you can die. And sometimes you might get both. You get fired and then you die. Or sometimes maybe it happens at the same time. Like as they're firing you, you're choking in the hospital and dying to the COVID. It's yet another example of why I have so little faith. Why I'm even nervous around police. I mean, I was always nervous around police to some degree, but even more so now that I have a much better understanding of kind of the type of people that seem to, gravitate towards law enforcement work. And again, I always had these kinds of notions and these stereotypes maybe, but to see some of these things confirmed when you have a huge chunk of the law enforcement community refusing to get vaccinated, which again, getting vaccinated is about protecting other people. It should be it's their job. Not really. That's not really their job. That's just more propaganda that was fed to me via children's books when I was growing up about what police are there to do. They're not there to protect us. They should be there to protect us. And some of them do try to do that. Yeah. Removed Robert E. Lee statue now on display at Texas Resort. Good for them. They can totally do that on their own private property. They can build a monument to Hitler for all I care. As long as it's not on government public property. Oh, I'm sure my wife will be sad. Betty Lynn, who played Thelma Lou on the Andy Griffith Show, dies at 95. Talking about large divides, my wife and I, man, huge gap between her and I regarding our kind of backgrounds and our upbringing. In terms of her growing up in a very conservative, traditional household where they watched the Andy Griffith Show. That's the kind of stuff that they watched growing up. A lot of black and white, kind of that, and like NASCAR. Those were the things they watched at her household. Whereas we watched, the X-Files and Wonder Years and the news and documentaries and stuff like that. Miami private school that requires students getting COVID vaccine to stay home for 30 days after each dose. Honestly, if it's an incentive for the kids to get it, then do it. Not really. We shouldn't be incentivizing stupidity because then they'll hold out for we start paying them money to. Some schools have done that for grades, right? If you get an A grade, we'll pay you $20, and supposedly it's been really successful. But then I wonder about what kind of values we're teaching our children and what kind of behaviors this encourages. When that's our only motivation in life is the almighty dollar. All right, well, I think that's gonna be it from me for today. Thanks for watching or listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you another day.